Russia's soldiers are terrified. Somehow, they've started to get used to the sound of drones buzzing overhead. That's just the nature of the war with Ukraine. But what we're seeing now is different. Otherworldly. A horror from the skies that is silent, undetectable, and is slaughtering Russian soldiers in droves. We'll be blunt, Putin's patsies are scared shitless, and they should be. The Martians have landed. And they're just the start of a wave of AI-powered obliteration that is coming for Russia's forces. We've got some of our first hints of what Ukraine has brought to the battlefield, not from Ukraine itself, but from Russia and its fearful security services. On April 21st, the Russian news agency TASS carried a quote from a source within the Russian security services, who told of something monstrous in the skies. Such drones are difficult to locate in advance with drone detectors, the source said ominously. The source then gave those new drones a name and explained just why they are brown stains in the pants of every Russian soldier in Ukraine right now. The key feature of the Martian UAV is that it runs almost completely silent. It can only be heard when it's diving on a target, making it doubly hard for personnel at outposts to determine when the Martian is about to attack, the source revealed. Silent, deadly, seemingly not of this world. It's starting to feel like Russia has found itself bringing tanks and meat to a sci-fi war, and it has no answers for what Ukraine has unleashed. Unnamed Russian sources aren't the only ones highlighting the horror of the Martians. In Horlivka, where Ukraine's otherworldly drones have been wreaking the most havoc, the Russian-installed mayor of the city, Ivan Prikodko, has spoken with wide-eyed horror of what Putin's patsies are now having to deal with. The new Ukrainian drones have a cruise speed of up to 300 km per hour, Prikodko says, making them faster than most of the FPV and fiber-optic drones seen on the front line. The real issue for Russia is simple. Ukraine's new drones no longer fly under operator guidance but are controlled by artificial intelligence. They are undetectable by electronic warfare systems, and drone detectors don't spot them, Prikodko reveals. Ukraine isn't saying much at all about these drones, which also means we don't know much from official channels about what the Martians are. But we do know a few things. One of which is that there is a surprising influence from Google that is now being seen on the battlefield. Stick with us to learn how that, along with some other interesting tidbits about the Martians, has caught everybody off guard. But for now, the reality is that the technical specifications of Ukraine's new AI-powered drones matter less than what those drones do when they're deployed. France 24 repeats the point about those drones being absolutely silent until the moment that they're bearing down on an unfortunate Russian soldier. Adding to that is the propensity of these new drones to fly so low to the ground that air defense systems can't spot them. Radars pointing skyward can't do much about an aerial threat that hugs the terrain, and adding both AI and high destructive power into the mix only compounds the problem. When these undetectable drones aren't taking out Russian soldiers, they're barreling into the very defense systems that are designed to spot them. What this means for Russia is simple. Once the Martians have landed, gaps for other drones and weaponry are created. Let's come back to what we know about the drones. We have a cruising speed, 300 km per hour is nothing to be sniffed at. We also know that they're silent and practically undetectable, and that there is some sort of AI component involved. But where did they come from? And why, after all of the drones that Ukraine has introduced to the battlefield, is this particular unmanned aerial vehicle being treated by Russia as though it's come from outer space? We can answer that second question with a little insight from the New York Times. It reveals that the Martian, at least in earlier iterations of the technology, appears to have been flying since early January 2025. Back then it was known as the Bumblebee. Rumblings about its capabilities emerged when Ukraine put its new weapon to the test. In January, a Bumblebee managed to stop a Russian logistics truck in its tracks while flying autonomously, the outlet says. A few months later, another Bumblebee flew without any human intervention to reach and strike a Russian armored vehicle that was using electronic warfare systems created to prevent this exact type of thing from happening. The word was out in Russia. Ukraine had a new kind of drone that couldn't be stopped using jammers. Russia made getting its hands on one of Ukraine's drones a priority, and it soon learned that the only way to do that was to shoot one down. More through luck than skill, Russia managed to do that just a couple of days after the Bumblebee strike on an armored vehicle. The debris from Ukraine's new drone was sent to the Center for Integrated Unmanned Solutions, which is one of Russia's main drone manufacturing businesses, stationed outside of Moscow. The center picked through the wreckage, and they gave the Bumblebee a new name, Martian, Russian for Martian. That name didn't come out of nowhere. The reason why Russia granted such an otherworldly title to Ukraine's new drone was due to the potential involvement of an organization that nobody would have ever expected to become part of the Ukraine war. No, not Google, we are getting to that. NASA. Now, we're not saying that NASA directly developed the Martian drone for Ukraine, but according to Russia, it can safely be assumed that the tech that drives the Martian undetected into so many of Russia's soldiers and military hardware was spawned from NASA's Ingenuity program. Way back in 2020, NASA sent its Ingenuity Mars helicopter to the planet that lent the drone its name. It first flew in April 2021, and over the next 3 years, that experimental drone completed 72 flights, all of which were carried out to determine just how well a drone could fly on a planet like Mars. The Ingenuity drone surpassed all expectations. NASA itself said that the drone ended up soaring higher and faster than previously imagined. And according to the New York Times, the Ingenuity drone completed many of these flights autonomously. Alarm bells began ringing at the Center for Integrated Unmanned Solutions. Within a month or two, reports were being created that practically screamed about potential US involvement in the creation of Ukraine's terrifying new drone. The Martian poses a serious threat, one of those reports declared, and it also stated, "There are no effective countermeasures and none are expected in the near future." Translation: Ukraine just brought an almost unstoppable drone to the battlefield, and the only way to bring it down is to get lucky and shoot it. Russia is right about all of it, including the US involvement. However, it's not just NASA's fingerprints that are seen all over Ukraine's Martian drones. There's another influence at play, and it's one that is far more direct in its involvement. That influence comes from Google itself, and it's bucking trends to ensure that Ukraine has what it needs to fight back against Russia's aggression. That alone changes everything for Ukraine. But before we dig a little deeper, this is a quick reminder that you are watching The Military Show. If this is the type of insight you want to see, make sure that you are subscribed to the channel. The influence that has made itself clear in The Martian is the former head of Google, Eric Schmidt. Schmidt goes further than most of Ukraine's individual backers. He isn't content to write a couple of checks and deliver some kind words. Schmidt uses his combination of tech expertise and financial muscle to build the sorts of weapons that gives Russia's soldiers nightmares. The Martian is one of those weapons, and it's the product of a Schmidt-run startup named White Stork. Forbes revealed the existence of this top-secret military project back in January 2024, though we didn't hear much more about it for months after. But what we heard back then was enough to convince anybody who was paying attention that White Stork could be a game-changer for Ukraine. Schmidt got to work recruiting some of the best and brightest from Silicon Valley. Former employees of companies like Apple, SpaceX, and Schmidt's former company Google ended up at White Stork, where they work alongside former members of US federal agencies. Hackathons started to take place. Schmidt uses his considerable influence to get his hands on tech that no other private business could get. The project was, and still is, the creation of AI-powered drones that can be used by Ukraine. It's from all of this work that the Martian originates. Tech that began life in a NASA laboratory and ended up on Mars has now found its way into Ukraine. It doesn't need GPS to navigate. Autonomous scanning of terrain features is enough. An electric motor weighing around 10 kilograms is what helps it to stay silent. It's cheap. It uses advanced electro-optical target detection and recognition systems that leverage AI to ensure that it hits precisely what it needs to hit. And even the videos and data that it sends back to Ukraine use advanced encrypted signals that Russia can't hack, meaning Putin's military brass can't even find clues about the new drone from the horrified looks on the faces of the soldiers who see it bearing down. The Martian isn't a pipe dream. It's not some crazy idea concocted by a rich man with more money than sense. The Martian is very real. It's wrecking Russian forces and equipment as we speak, and that is a major problem for Putin. However, it's also just the tip of the iceberg, because behind the headline grabbing of the Martian drone, there is a far bigger issue that Russia has to grapple with. Ukraine's AI revolution is now well underway, and Russia is falling a long way behind. Ukraine's Ministry of Defense has already made it very clear that it views AI as the true game changer in Ukraine's battle against Russia. On May 4th, the CEO of Ukraine's Defense AI Center A1, Danilo Tsvok, made that clear in comments published by the ministry. Ukraine's use of AI isn't about creating a 100% autonomous battlefield, Tsvok says. It's about effectiveness and the creation of weapons that minimize the risk posed to Ukraine's soldiers while maximizing the damage done to Russia. Not only that, Tsvok declares, but the work done by companies like Defense AI Center A1, which is working alongside the UK's government, is essential to protecting democracy throughout the West. Democracies must develop defense capabilities. Without AI, they cannot effectively safeguard peace, Tsvok declares. Comments tinged with a little self-interest from an AI tech guru? Perhaps. But Tsvok's bluster reveals that Ukraine sees the AI-powered weaponry that it is introducing onto the battlefield as one of the most important advancements yet made in the battle against Putin's authoritarianism. The Martian is at the forefront of a new wave of AI-powered drones that are tearing through the Russian offensive. And it's not just drones that are being encompassed by Ukraine's AI wave. Several more weapons are being automated to give Ukraine an edge against Putin's marauding forces, which we'll get into in a few minutes. Sticking with drones for the moment, the head of Ukraine's presidential office and formerly one of Ukraine's main men in the intelligence sector, Kyrylo Budanov, has claimed that the battlefield has reached a point where the limits of existing technologies are being reached, which is forcing the emergence of new technologies if Ukraine is to stay ahead. A transition to autonomous systems is required. These should be platforms capable of independently identifying targets and maneuvering without direct human control. Ukraine already has developments in this area, and they are expected to become a significant and potentially unexpected factor on the battlefield in the near future, Budanov declares. So we may not be at the point where the battlefield is 100% autonomous, but something like that appears to be Ukraine's goal. Ukraine isn't just saying all of this while ruminating on some theoretical future. Money and time are being poured into making the battlefield as autonomous as possible. Companies such as Swarmer, which develops software that can be used to coordinate drone swarms featuring all manner of unmanned aerial vehicles, are working to make Ukraine's AI technology as widespread among its unmanned systems forces as possible. Swarmer's tech has already been used in more than 100,000 missions in Ukraine since it was introduced in April 2024, Ukraine Arms Monitor reports. The likes of White Stork are making more specific technologies and drones, though even individual systems can be used to inspire future generations of drones that Ukraine brings to the battlefield. Ukraine has more than enough companies that are working to make its drone-based strategy a reality. An absolute juggernaut of a defense industry already exists in the drone sector, and it's expected to manufacture 7 million drones for Ukraine in 2026 alone, the Kyiv Independent reports. That amounts to around 19,000 drones made per day, some costing as little as $500, yet still capable of taking out multi-million-dollar Russian systems, such as the air defenses that are now failing so badly against the Martian. On the AI front, Ukraine now has over 200 companies that are developing drone and drone-related technologies that make use of artificial intelligence. Those companies have combined to register more than 300 AI-related drone developments on Ukraine's Brave One platform, which Ukraine created to ensure collaboration between its decentralized drone producers and to ensure those producers have direct support from Ukraine's government. On the battlefield right now, Ukraine has over 70 systems that make use of AI technology in play. We told you earlier that the Martian, as terrifying as it is for Putin's soldiers, is just the tip of the iceberg. This is what we meant. Ukraine's otherworldly drone is spearheading an entire revolution that is making Russian pants browner than the noses of Putin's lackeys. What we're now seeing Ukraine do is enter a new phase of warfare that is unlike anything that has been seen before. AI integration allows Ukraine's drones to autonomously identify and zero in on targets, all while navigating complicated conditions that are layered with electronic warfare. These drones can also process more data far faster than a human could ever be capable of doing, which is already allowing for real-time adjustments to be made to what Ukraine's drones are doing with minimal interference from human operators. We are seeing the dawn of autonomy in progress, and it's not going to be long before the AI drone sun rises so high that it scorches through Russia. Every single day, new prototypes of drones and software are being tested, much of which is being funded by Ukraine and its partners. We now have the likes of Eric Schmidt serving as crusaders for the Russian cause, putting their money where their mouth is to deliver the sort of technology that feels as though it's been pulled out of Star Wars. Weapons that were once limited by the fiber optic cables attached to them or the knowledge that their operators had available relating to the battlefield are now able to fly in swarms, picking out targets as they go, while overcoming all of the means that Russia has to stop them. But before the dawn of the new day, Ukraine must keep building. AI clearly offers plenty of advantages on the drone front, but if there's one thing that we've learned about Ukraine since Putin launched his invasion, it's that Ukraine never lets a discovery lie once it's been made. AI drones are at the forefront of the autonomous revolution, but Ukraine is integrating AI into far more weapons than the Martian and its ilk. We're starting to see AI everywhere, and that spells bad news for Russia. On May 9th, the Kyiv Post revealed that Ukraine has developed a new AI-powered turret via the Brave One cluster that is being used to track and shatter Russian fiber-optic drones. These types of drones are similar to Ukraine's AI drones in that they can't be stopped by electronic warfare, though they're not autonomous, and they are limited by the length of their cables. Ukraine's answer to those drones is more AI built into turrets that are now active in 10 units across the battlefield, and what will likely soon spread to become a standard defense against one of the most important weapons that Russia has on the front lines. We're even seeing Ukraine incorporate AI into other weapons that feel otherworldly. Also on May 9th, Interesting Engineering reported that Ukraine is trialing a new anti-drone laser with an engagement range of about 5 kilometers. Named the Trizub, this laser has entered its final testing phase before it's deployed on the battlefield. With laser defenses, Ukraine can shoot down Russian Shahid drones at practically no cost, as physical rounds or interceptor drones don't have to be manufactured. The laser has already been successfully tested against targets measuring as small as 18 centimeters, which implies that Shahids won't be a problem, and AI is used to rapidly track and target Russia's incoming drone before a laser fires off so fast that the drone is down before it even knows what hit it. And do you remember earlier when we mentioned that Ukraine sees this sort of tech as so important that it believes it can protect the concept of democracy itself? That isn't idle chatter from Ukraine. NSS magazine revealed in April that Ukraine is providing the data it is collecting from its drone and AI-based systems to its Western allies so that they can use it to train their own AI models. That means AI is becoming more than just a tool for Ukraine on the battlefield. Drones like the Martian gain a new layer of terror for Putin and his patsies because Ukraine is actively using the data it collects to make itself even more essential to the kinds of nations that want to stand against Putin's tyranny. Ukraine's advancements are the collective West's gains. And what it means is that Russia is facing a West that is ever more unified, not just ideologically, but in terms of its capability to deal with Russia. Russia is trying to keep up, it's developing AI drones of its own, and it's trying to deploy the tech against Ukraine. Russia's drones are prone to errors and aren't as advanced as even the earlier versions of Ukraine's AI tech. Russia's own reporting claims that Ukraine's autonomous terminal guidance, which is seen in the likes of the Martian drone, is achieving a direct hit rate of over 70%, which is insane when faced with air defenses, electronic warfare, and every other countermeasure that Russia has created. The reality that Putin must now face is simple. The Martians have landed, and they're just the start of a series of Ukrainian advancements that have changed the rules of modern warfare. The tech will get better, the stains in Russia's pants will get bigger, and the AI-powered slaughter that is already happening and will only get worse has the potential to stop Putin's invasion in its tracks. As Russia's leader watches Ukraine advance in ways he never thought possible, Russia's own advanced weaponry is taking a beating. The new generation of fighter jets was supposed to bring Russia's air force to parity with the US and China. Instead, Russia's latest jet lies in ruins, and it's all thanks to a long-range assault by Ukraine. Discover more about the fate of Russia's ultra-modern Su-57s, which Putin was hiding over 1,700 kilometers away from Ukraine's borders, in our video. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit subscribe so that you never miss what the military show has in store next. And thank you for watching.